All right, welcome everybody to Now Let's Debatable. We are taking off a little later than normal, but that is quite all right with us. We have a special guest, Joseph Jacskon, on with us, and today we're going to be talking about can children change their gender? So this is going to be an interesting one. As always, our live chat is up on the screen. I will be probably doing most of the monitoring of that. If it gets as crazy as last time, that makes me excited because we had some
Crazy
comments,
comments.
some
The universe is
shade
6,000
being
years
thrown,
old.
calling us
Yeah, okay.
idiots. That's always exciting. By the way, the person that called us an idiot didn't email us. One person did, and so we've already scheduled them. But the person that called us an idiot, we welcome to the show, and you may far outclass us, but you took the time to comment and call us an idiot. So if you're interested, it's still open for you. We still will make a spot for you, and we will talk about anything that you want to talk about. That is our promise. Also, we promise not to hang up on you, as one of the other commenters who was bold enough to jump in and join us. We'll find out next week. So, without further ado, Joseph Jacskon, Triboulet-The, let's get this thing started.
Sure. So, main thing, I guess we were going to talk about children and transgenderism. So, transgenderism by itself is already a pretty controversial topic. When you bring children in the mix, then it gets like really, really taboo. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
I know. So, tell me, like, are you of the position that like transgenderism like doesn't even exist? Like, do you conflate gender and sex? I want to know that'll help me like gauge like where to start the conversation. Do you think they're the same thing?
For sure. So you're saying like what I say that there's only male and female and then no in between? Is that kind of what you're asking?
Well, no. Like, would you say like, for instance, like when I describe sex and then when I describe gender?
Oh, I think you cut out.
Yeah, you definitely cut out.
Did I freeze or did y'all freeze? Did I cut out?
Froze.
I froze. Okay.
Yeah, I think both of us are okay. I can continue here on this side, but you froze.
Okay. Yeah. So like when I say gender and sex, I'm referring to two very different things. Like when I talk about gender, I'm talking about a phenomena that happens in the brain. It's a matter of identity. When I talk about sex, I'm talking about something that's slightly more empirical. Well, I guess epistemically it's more empirical. What happens in the brain is empirical as well. But what happens in the body is much more easy to define. For instance, when we talk about sex, we're talking about chromosomes, we're talking about gametes, we're talking about genitalia, right? Very easy to define sex. Gender is a little different. So what I was asking is, would you conflate those two? Do you think sex and gender are the same thing? Because we had previous guests both talk about this, and both times they said they're the same thing. So I just want to know.
Yeah. I don't think I would separate the two.
Okay.
So like when you say, and I guess explain to me what you mean by gender.
Yeah, so like gender is like a phenomenon that happens in the brain from what we can tell is unique to Homo sapiens, but it's about your identity, the way you see yourself. Like for instance, like you see yourself as a man, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's because of your brain. It's not because of your penis. Like your penis didn't tell you that. Like your brain told you that. That's what you think with, right? And if I was to take your brain and put it in, let's say, a woman's body, in your wife's body, right? If I were to switch y'all's bodies, you would still feel like a man because of your brain. So that thing that feels like a man, that is your gender.
Okay. I see what I think you're saying. So,
Freeze.
so no, I think I'm serious. Yeah. So that example that you just used, you would say that like my wife is a woman because of what's going on in her brain.
That's her gender. When I'm referring to her gender,
Okay.
I'm saying her gender identity is she's a woman, because of what's going on in her brain. But let's say if I was swap bodies, right? Well, now you have her body, but you still have your brain, right? Your gender identity wouldn't change as a result, but though your biological sex would. Because when we talk about sex, we're talking about gametes, we're talking about chromosomes, we're talking about genitalia, right? So like these are much easier for us to define. Whereas with the brain, it's complicated. There's a bunch of neurons and stuff, and neurological pathways is firing into different things, and so that's what I'm talking about. So
is that like the definition that you feel like is universally not universally held to, but like held to by most people, that gender and sex are different in that specific way that you're saying?
So when I look at most anthropologists, when they go and study this throughout history and throughout various different cultures, they do look at it as very different things, and because that's why oftentimes you'll have sometimes a half a dozen different genders in various different cultures, but still only two sexes. So
you're saying like gender would be like socially constructed, you would say?
I wouldn't say it's a social construct. So there's a lot of people on the left that kind of goes that route, and I don't, because when I talk about, so gender roles is a social construct. Gender identity is not. Gender identity is a biological construct because it happens in your brain. So it's your brain. The reason you feel like a man is because of your brain. You see what I'm saying? And so, I'm saying is a biological construct. So it's not social. Just like the society couldn't make you feel like a woman any more than they could make you feel gay. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So that's what I'm talking about. It is ingrained in your biology.
So would you say that? I know you had mentioned the body parts. Would you say that that has no bearing on if someone is a male or a woman?
So when we the body parts are like something like the genitalia and stuff.
Yeah. So like me having a penis, you would say that is in no relation to me being a male.
So are we talking about in the context of gender, or are we talking about context of sex?
Yeah, like in gender, you would say no.
Totally irrelevant. Yeah, because it is just about your brain state. And
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, and in some circumstances, you could have a penis and still be a biological female. And in some instances,
like intersex.
Yes, like it gets complicated. Like even biological sex isn't binary. It's bimodal. You could definitely argue that it's bimodal, but it's definitely not binary.
So then that would leave the door open, you would say, for an endless amount of genders.
No, so I wouldn't say it's endless. So
or however many someone would come up with in their brain. Like, can I just like assign myself like what my identity is?
No, because your brain already identifies as a thing. So like there's a lot of like crazy college kids on Twitter that's changing their genders, every other day. And those are the types of people that conservatives like to prompt up and say, oh, look what the crazy left is doing. The guys,
right, the extreme examples and stuff.
Yeah, that's not typically what's happening. So you're not determining your identity. Did you decide that you identify as a man?
Did I decide? No.
Yeah. Like no, nor did I. I've always seen myself as a man. I've never even seen myself as a boy. Like I've always seen myself as a man, just because of the way my parents referred to me. Like my mom never referred to me as a boy, or neither did my dad. We just saw us as young men, even as really little. So like I didn't choose that. That's just what I am. So that's just what my brain does. So. So I'm not choosing my gender identity. And for us, when you said that, is there an infinite amount of genders?
Yep.
I mean, well, this is a very difficult ontological question. So this is what I'll say. So the way I see it, gender is the longer of spectrum, right? There are people, right? And on one end, you have masculinity. On the other end, you have femininity, right? And you can be anywhere along the lines, right? So there are like there are certain men that are more masculine than others. You know,
Mhm.
so kind of
Yep.
like maybe one kid he likes video games, not much into like physical contact sports or anything like that. And then you got like, you know, your on a Schwarzenegger types, you know, I'm
Mhm.
gonna kill people, stuff like that, like super
Yeah.
masculine, right? And so you have various degrees of masculinity, various degrees of femininity, and then you have like kind of like you guess you like your metrosexual types, you know, like blur the lines.
Mhm.
And so that's what I say. So I'm not sure if there's an infinite amount of genders, but it is not binary. You could say that, but I mean it's like saying, for instance, it'd be like me saying like the North and South Pole, the North and South are binary, right? So you could say it's binary as in there's two directions, but there's a lot in between. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Right.
So
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying.
I mean,
Okay.
just to kind of steel man that a little bit, or to give a different
Mhm.
analogy to how, at least I think most people perceive it, and I don't want to speak for Triboulet, but just in general, the rainbow flag actually kind of makes a lot of sense for representing the LGBTQ community, because it's not that there's not a set amount of colors in the flag. It's how many distinguishing colors can you make between one and the other, right? Like, just
Mhm.
because something's a little less, red, doesn't mean it's not a little more blue, but how many individual colors are there between, and you could break it down into hues of how many different hues of blue are there. Does that make you more masculine? Does that make you more feminine? Does it make you an exact middle ground or non-binary, right? So it's just,
Yeah.
no, there's probably not an infinite number, but there's an indistinguishable number between how one might lie on one side or the other.
Yep.
Okay. That makes sense. So like there would be, I guess there'd be some number though, not if not infinite. There'd be
Oh no. So that's what. So
yeah. No,
back to
just
his rainbow analogy, right? Because think
yep.
about this. So like the difference between red and orange. Like you know much about physics? You kind of
Yeah,
I'm
a
a
little
physics
bit.
nerd.
A little bit.
Okay, so
Yeah,
difference
yeah,
between
yeah, yeah.
the difference between red and orange, right? It's the frequency of the photon, right?
Yep.
Red is like kind of doing this, and orange is like doing just a little bit. The wavelength is just like slightly shorter, right? Well, I guess you could say that you could shorten the wavelength of orange to infinity without ever reaching red. So in that sense, maybe there is an infinite amount of colors. All right.
Right.
Just like there maybe could be an infinite amount of genders. Like to me that we're really going into the weeds.
Yeah.
So like what I want to say is like I say gender is bimodal, just like sex is bimodal, but it's not binary. Right, because there's varying degrees of masculinity, there's varying degrees of femininity, and then you can kind of blur the lines, and then like I don't know which one it is, So
That's why I use the
Okay,
term
I think I see where you're going.
indistinguishable.
yes,
And
and
that's
this was
just my preference. Like it, that you can disagree with it. It's just the word I chose to use in that instance.
No,
But
yeah.
it's an indistinguishable number, because you might have two people that have very similar mannerisms and express themselves in very similar ways, but then say, if nothing else, for the sake of having their own identity, they don't identify the same way as someone else, right? Does that mean
Mhm.
that they don't have, a similar mindset, similar masculine traits, similar feminine traits, etc.? No. It's just for the sake of identity's purpose. Most people want to be unique. Most people want to have their own identity, and most people want to say, I am me, no matter, and that's different, at least a little bit, to everybody else, right? But obviously, you would say that, like, you could also classify people for the sake of masculinity. The big heavy weightlifters obviously have a lot in common, but that doesn't mean they identify the same way per se.
Yeah,
You
and
know?
also too, and when I was my analogy, when I was saying masculinity over here and femininity over here, right? It
Yeah.
assumes that the difference like is linear, and that's not
Yep.
necessarily the case, right? Somebody can be super masculine but have some feminine characteristics. Like for someone, it's like they're the super strong, deep voiced army,
Yeah.
like weightlifter, but they also like to cross dress, right? So like, because people are complicated. right? So
Yep.
I don't even want to say that it's just like a linear relationship. So
Yeah.
it's complicated.
Yeah. So like in terms of gender, I think I hear what you're saying. What would they be if it's connected to identity, right?
Mhm.
What are they identifying as? And sorry if I'm confused, because I know the transgender thing gets to, I think it gets to anyway, male and female generally, right? Like
Yeah,
transitioning
for
to.
the most part, yeah.
Okay,
And there's people that consider themselves to be non-binary, right?
right. Okay, so yep. So like, what's happening in the brain, you would say, is gender, and what they're identifying as, like what is that they're identifying as?
Well, that's going to be based on the individual, right? Because I mean, like I have met some people that I thought were pretty feminine, and they went by they/he.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of varies, right? That's going to be based on the individual.
Yeah. So
I could be wrong here, Joseph, but are you asking more along the lines of like a more base question of like what do you mean by when they're saying they identify in a certain way, since like they're
yeah,
since gender is kind of pointing to a bimodal sex, male and female, are you more asking of like, oh well, when someone identifies as this unique gender, if you will, what are they actually saying? They're saying they're more feminine than masculine. They're saying they're more male than female. They're saying they're more likely to produce, small gametes than large, that kind of thing. Is that where you're going with that?
yeah, kind of like for example, um I wouldn't say, me personally, I identify as a male, even though I hear like your definition. I wouldn't say I identify as a male. I would say I am male.
Well, that's for
Like
them. That's what you're
That
doing.
is identity, right?
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, but I
you're a
mean
man.
like right, but I wouldn't mean like, I wouldn't say that me I would say that me having genitalia is connected to me being like male, not
Well,
just apart
so
from my genitalia.
are you talking about your sex or your gender? Because I might agree.
Oh,
Depending.
sorry. Yeah, sorry. So I mean, so I think the two bleed into each other. I don't see how they're completely separate.
Yeah, I don't think
In,
they're completely separate either. Like,
okay,
so
got you.
yeah, that's why, like, because like
In terms of that, yeah.
yeah, because 99% of the population, people's genders correlate with their biological sex. So like, there's
Yeah.
definitely a relationship, but it doesn't always match.
Yeah, typically,
Yeah, okay.
especially because like if you look at sex as gamete production, typically if you produce smaller gametes, you typically have more masculine traits, and part of that is because of the chemical that we all know as testosterone. Typically, the more
Mhm.
testosterone you have, the more masculine you kind of come across, if you will. You're more likely to be, bodybuilder, have more muscle tone, have bigger and stronger bones, that kind of thing,
Yep.
because that's what testosterone physically does to your body. Like that's changes that it makes, and
Mhm.
most people that have a lot of testosterone typically identify as men, as male. That's not always the case, and that's not. I think the whole kind of purpose of the argument is for us to say that like that doesn't have to be the case, if you will. That just because you experience or have extra testosterone, that doesn't make you a man by any means, because
Yeah,
there are
right.
cases of biologically born females that have typical like more typical testosterone than some natural born males. So
Mhm.
it's not just a one thing that you're looking at. It's kind of a like when you say you wouldn't say identify as male, you just say I am male. Like if you took out the word identify, you've said the same thing. You've just been a little more redundant by saying I identify. So I say I am male or I identify as male. I'm just being redundant.
So when it sounds like when you said that, maybe I'm wrong, but it sounds like when you said that I wouldn't identify as male, you would say I am male. It seems like there's an implication that what a transgender is saying does not have the same empirical basis that a cisgender person's identity would. Like, because is my inference right?
Say that one more time.
Maybe
So like, look, okay, so like when you said that I wouldn't say that I identify as a male, I would say that I am a male. So
Yeah, I
to
would say I'm
to me,
male from birth.
gotcha. So to me, are you in a way implying that when a trans man says that he's a man, like that doesn't have the same empirical basis as you saying you're a man?
Yeah, so like a person who transitioned from
Mm-hmm.
female to male, and they would say, "I'm a man." You're saying, or you're asking, "Am I?"
Yeah, are you saying
Saying,
it doesn't have the
"Yep,
same empirical basis? Okay, gotcha.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
what I
yeah, yeah,
thought.
yeah, 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 yeah,
Okay,
yeah, yeah."
so because this might be the kind of confusion because um in every instance that I've never heard a trans man say that their biological sex is a man. When they say that they're a man, they're literally just referring to their gender. So, and when you say you're a man, you're referring to your biological sex.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Partly. Yeah. Yeah. In one way. Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Okay. All right. So it's not like what transgender person has some sort of like false perception of reality. A trans woman is not saying I believe I'm a biological woman. That's not what's going on. They accept the fact that they're a biological male. What they're referring to when they say I'm a woman, they're referring to their gender identity. That's why we get the word transgender, right? Not like trans sex, right? You can't change your sex, at least not yet. Maybe 100 years or so we'll figure it out, but at least not yet.
Are you saying that most? Are you saying that most people who identify as trans would phrase it how you put it? Like they don't believe that they are a woman. They know that
They don't
are
believe they're a
man.
biological. They're saying they're not saying that they're a biological woman. That their biological sex is woman. They're saying that their gender identity is a woman. That's what a trans woman is saying. That has been in every case that I've ever heard of.
Mhm.
If a trans woman is saying that she is biologically a woman as well, that would be an inaccurate statement because she wouldn't be trans anymore. She'd be a cis woman.
Yeah.
So because we literally look at the biological sex to determine whether or not you're trans or cis, right? So
I think I have two follow-up questions in terms of like the gender thing. When you said it happens in the brain, when
does it happen in the brain?
Yeah, so like I've been born, and I'm a biological boy, male, and then what is my gender at that moment?
So it happens at different, like at various stages. People develop gender identities at different ages because we have different developments. Like we don't develop at the same rate, right? We don't like so. And think about like physically, right? Some people start puberty at like 6 or 7 years old. Some people start puberty at like 17 or 18. Right. So so we're not all the same. So sometimes people will develop gender identities at different points in life. Right. But I've heard of cases, children as young as 5 expressing some sort of form of gender dysphoria. So it can happen really young.
I'll say that typically, if it helps, that most cases that are studied typically start around the age of prepubescence. So right around the age of 10 for boys, around 8 or 9 for girls. And it's at that point when you start getting these hormonal changes that kind of help direct what your physiological body is going to do. So for biological men, typically they get broader shoulders, their voice deepens, that kind of thing. For biological women, typically their hips widen, they develop breasts, that kind of things. But it's typically leading up to these physiological changes that gender kind of becomes an identity, if you will. Now, not always, like Triboulet was saying, it's kind of depending on how quickly one develops and whatnot, and there's a lot of factors in that. But for most people that have these feelings, they're starting to develop them and then starting to be able to express them well by the age of puberty.
Okay. So go ahead, bro. Yep.
Well, I was gonna say what he said like a few sentences ago, like he was kind of leading up into like the topic that I really wanted to jump into. That's when we're talking about children, right?
Yep.
Because so think about this, like if you have gender dysphoria, right? Like prepubescent gender dysphoria, right? So like you're 5 or 6, right? And you're like, oh, you know, I'm starting to feel like a girl, right? So if you, once you start puberty, all the dysphoria that you were experiencing like just multiplies, right? Because think about like if you feel like you're a female, right? Now your voice is going to start deepening, right? You're like, whoa, that's weird. My shoulders are getting broader. Like, you're going to start developing all of these secondary sexual characteristics and you're going to have to look in the mirror and see that happening, right? And so this is going to be, it could be very traumatic for a person who already has gender dysphoria. And so, and that's what we're looking at trying to prevent. That's why we're looking to, well, I support, certain types of treatment for children with gender dysphoria. And that could be, like gender affirming therapy. And not just like I'm talking about like counseling, all that type of stuff, but like stuff that it would involve like sometimes hormone therapy that could help them.
Yeah. One quick question before we jump into that. So with the brain thing and how they would identify as, like, for example, someone is identifying as male, right? Like you said, from the brain. What is a male?
What is a male? Like, we're talking about like gender?
Yeah. What is that?
Okay. So, all right. So we tie that to biological sex in the instance. So, for instance, it's kind of hard to define. However,
if you're not using biological sex, like what is it? Like, what is a male?
Well, we're still using biology, so this is what we do.
Okay,
right. So like there's like dozens of studies, right? Well, not dozens. There's like 2 dozen studies. There's a bunch of studies out there that looks at brain scans, and this is what we've noticed, right? So they notice that they'll take males and females of, I'm talking about biological sex. They take men and women of very similar intelligence and aptitude, and they have them perform a task, right? And they'll compare them, and they'll look at a male and female like, oh, they performed the task equally well. The performance is equal, right? But they look at their brain, and their brains did very different things. Right? Even though they had equal performance. So somebody says Matt Walsh, What Is a Woman is a great film. We want to get him on the show because because he's an idiot. But so anyway, there are brains that we've noticed, we look at just the neurological pathways. There are brains that male brains have functions that are typical of certain neurological pathways, and females have brains of different pathways, right? And so through what you call it, machine learning, right? You know what machine learning is? It's like it's like artificial intelligence, right? It can look at patterns and make inferences based off of the patterns, right? And so it'll look at these patterns, and what it'll do is it could accurately predict the gender of this particular brain just based off of the neurological pathways of that specific brain.
Saying, so when you say it could pick it out, meaning it would pick out if it was a male or a female.
Yes, it could. Yep. It was look the way your brain operates. You're like, boom, that's a male. And so from there, you could walk into an office, right? You can walk into an office, not give the.
Hey, Triboulet, you're I don't know if it's your internet or what's going on, but you keep freezing.
I kept freezing.
I don't know if your internet's going on or what's up.
Yeah, I'm not sure. So, but anyway, what I was going to say was you could walk into an office, the doctor not know anything about you, right? Just look at your biological sex, do a brain scan, and determine whether or not you're transgender.
Determine whether or not you're transgender?
I froze again.
Yep. You keep freezing
Yeah.
up.
Hold on, man. I don't know what's going on. Okay. So what I was gonna say was like, so you could walk into a doctor's office, not give any information to the doctor, and the doctor could be able to tell whether or not you're transgender just by scanning your brain and looking at your biological sex. So, so when we talk about gender identity, what is it like? What is a man, or what is a male gender? A male gender is, I guess, is a mind that exhibit properties typical of a male. And like, you may not be satisfied with that definition because I kind of defined it.
No,
by
you're
Okay.
good. You good. You good.
Okay.
Yeah. Just trying to understand how you define it. No, that's fine.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
So then in terms of like children transitioning, you would say you're for it when I forgot when you said.
Yeah, I'm like when a kid has gender dysphoria, and so what I want is, I want pretty much the government to really stay out of it because I don't think they have an interest in it. I think this should involve the parents in most cases. The parents, the doctor, so the medical specialist, and the child. I think this is a decision that really just involves them. I don't want laws stopping children from getting this treatment because it's been shown to help. It doesn't always help, but a lot of times it does. All right.
So would you say the adults? Would you say the parents would be wrong if they didn't allow their kids to transition?
It could be. Just like if a parents deny their children life-saving treatment or just treatment that could improve their livelihood. Yeah, they could be wrong. I mean, it's a complicated situation. This is a case by case.
No, that makes sense.
I'm a father, and if that happened to, if I was to run into the situation where my daughter was trans, and I saw and I looked and I had all the relevant information in front of me, and I had reasonable assurance that gender affirming therapy would help her, and I refused it, I'm being wrong. I'm being immoral.
Okay. Yeah. No, that's hard for me. It's interesting when you talk about moral because I think this is unavoidable in any like any discussion. Honestly, I think and I could be wrong on this if I say this wrong. I think every topic essentially could be a moral issue, if that makes sense.
I'm sorry.
Like
I think I cut out again, so I missed what you said.
I'm sorry. No, I said I think every topic could be a moral issue in terms of like what's right and wrong. When you talk about the government like should stay out or ought to stay out, or like children ought to be able to transition, I think once you start using that language, you can't help but bring in morality into the discussion, right? So like I know you've heard this, of course, over and over, like by what standard? I think if there's no foundation for morality, right, other than us, like essentially we could decide whatever we want to do, and you could say it's wrong.
We should have you on for more to the conversation because I just
so you can say something is wrong, and I can say it's wrong, or I can say it's right. But if it's just me and you left in the univerce, like it's just whoever says it's not essentially.
I'm sorry.
So I would say like you're good. So I'd say like in terms of transitioning, I think a position would be either like, I don't think you'd have an argument from a moral basis for yes or no, like for them to transition or not.
Okay, so you're gonna make me go into morality here. So like, cause like I think you can't avoid it, and I think you can't avoid morality in like anything though. You know what I mean? Sure. I mean, yes, but
does that make sense?
It makes sense, but it seems like you, for some reason, you think morals are subjective.
I don't think they are. I don't think they are, but I don't think they are. I think that, like, for example, I think
you think God decides morals?
So yeah, I'm a Christian, so I wouldn't say that. Yeah, so I wouldn't say that, like,
if you think God decides morals, then morals are subjective.
By what? What do you mean by that? Sorry.
Because God's deciding the rules. Like, he's an agent who's just deciding. It's just his opinion. But it has no objective basis. My moral system does have an objective basis. So for instance, like, I don't want to go too deep into morality.
No, you could. Yeah.
But when we talk about the theology of morality, what's it for? Why do we have morals? Right. The reason why we have morals is because we live in a shared reality called the universe, right? And the decisions that I make have consequences, and those consequences, the impact of the consequences don't occur in a vacuum. They affect the world around me and the people in it, right? So there are decisions that I could make that could do irreparable damage to your livelihood, and you could do the same to me. There's decisions that I could make that could wind up ending your livelihood, killing you, right? That being the case, you don't want to.
Don't know what's up with your internet today, bro. It's all over the place.
Going out, bro.
I'm going in and out. Hold on.
All over the place.
Jeez, hold on. Hey, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, what was the last point that you understood? I'm still going in and out.
Not what I mean. You were going in and out. That's the whole problem. But
okay.
The long and the short is, you're about to go on a really long tangent on morality and why having a god doesn't fix the problem of subjective.
No, I wasn't. That's not what I was going to do. I was going to show how it was objective.
I don't know. We've known each other a really long time.
No. I was going to end it really quick. So what I was going to say was that, so when we talk about morality, what we're talking about is well-being, right? And so when we have a child with gender dysphoria, right, there is a right decision. Whether or not we know it is totally irrelevant, right? I'm talking about, like, there is a right decision. There is something that's going to help him. There's something that's going to harm him. The thing that's going to be best for his well-being, that is the moral thing to do. So it's not just a matter of opinion. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. So when you say morality, can you define morality again? Morality is what?
Yeah, it's well-being. Like, it's an action that contributes to well-being, right? And so, like, now that kind of raises the question, what's well-being, right? So well-being is kind of harder to define, but, like, it consists mostly of health, wealth, happiness, security, and safety. There's also freedom. I mean, and there's probably other things you could add in there, but
freedom unless
or safety unless.
No,
right?
So I mean, freedom unless someone's safety is.
No, because there are some times where freedom could override safety,
and vice versa.
Right.
Yeah. So,
it really depends on, like, how you would prioritize it, which is kind of where, your own tendencies.
Yeah. So
for
here,
instance, most people are willing to give up some freedoms for a sense of safety, right? Like, if I said, like, there's going to be a nuclear bomb, you'd give up the freedom to move outside for a while in a lead bunker to be safe from the bomb, right? You know, like, you're going to give up freedoms of outdoors to live. So, like, it's kind of in that case, is your freedom a better choice of well-being than your safety? Well, in the circumstance of there's an atomic bomb dropping outside, you know, so it's a situational thing that's
So I was gonna say, because it sounded like I think you had made the assumption that because I'm atheist that I don't have objective morality. So is that kind of where you were going? Is that why you?
No, I would say you can be moral, of course. I would just say there's no ultimate justification for it. If we came from
apes.
No, I mean even further than that, right? So like if we
Just take it
came
back to
from
without a god, right?
Is that-
so
Yo,
if we came from
get
if we
your
came from
friend on the show, and
no
yes,
yeah
I will explain all of this. These are not
no for sure so
Yeah.
I'm saying like if like for example if we came from nothing, right? Like if we just we're happenstance. If we're
Oh,
happenstance, I don't know what you believe about how we came to be
well,
as
I don't think
humans.
we didn't come from nothing. We came from
What
stuff,
like what stuff?
matter, energy. That's
Matter and energy.
yeah. That's just the fact.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah,
So
in fact, it's only just
So-
changed states a couple
yeah.
of
I
hundred
mean-
trillion times, but
It sounds like
Yeah.
we're going. It sounds like we kind of.
No,
Are you gonna try? Are you trying to say that the Big Bang came from nothing? Is that where you? Is that where you?
No,
you're going? Okay.
no, I'm
I
saying
don't think we're
we're
going down that argument. I think it's just
I say
if
we're-
if all we are is matter, then what's the
So
point?
okay.
so like no, what I'm saying is ultimately I'm not saying that you can't be moral. Like that's not what I'm saying. So don't hear
Yeah.
that. But I'm saying in terms of like if we came out of I don't even know what you believe about if we came from what's the word? I can't even think of the word.
I accept.
Abiogenesis.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry.
Okay, I mean,
Abiogenesis.
So I accept that
Like
the science-
like quantum physics type of thing. Like if you think quantum physics did
what about
like if you think like we just came from like a vibration and something just happened and we happened to like grow and grow and grow into different things, like at what point is it like, hey, like you're growing this way and if you do this that's
so
wrong.
the point when you become sentient, right?
Okay, yeah.
That's when morality starts.
Gotcha.
So,
Yeah, just trying to see where you. Yep.
Yeah, if you can't suffer, then I have no moral obligations to you at all. Like I could just like shoot you in the head with a shotgun. Why is it wrong? It doesn't matter. You didn't suffer. It didn't harm you in any way. So that
right.
So sentience. That's when morality kicks in. That's when I start to have moral obligations to you.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. Yep.
No,
And
I think you use the word obligations there a little loosely. I think if I were to press you on
Well-
it, you might say consideration.
Yeah, because I don't think you can say obligation. I certainly don't think you can.
Well, I was
say
like,
that.
for instance, I have an obligation to not do you harm
Why?
because it would be immoral otherwise. So if you're asking why should I be moral, there's no intrinsic reason to be moral. Just like adding God wouldn't fix it, right? Because let's say God thinks it's immoral too. So what? I don't care, right? There's no intrinsic reason to care about what God thinks either, right? So
I would say this: unless it's true that He existed and created you, then that
doesn't matter.
That could, okay, that's fine. No, that's fair.
I could just
I
not
would say,
care about that stuff either.
oh, for sure. I would just say, I would just say, I'm not saying that. I would say that. Sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, are you familiar with Kant's hypothetical and categorical imperative?
Yeah.
Okay, that's kind of where it gets to, right?
Yep.
So like even if all of that stuff is true, there's a heaven and hell, Jesus Christ is Lord, blah blah blah. There's no intrinsic reason for me to care about it.
There's not.
No.
Even though it would be good for your well-being. If it was true.
So now you're just appealing to well-being, right? So
I'm appealing to it because it is your standard. That's what I mean. Not like not that I'm saying that's why you should do it. I'm saying if your standard is well-being and if it's true that a God exists and He created you and cares for you, right? Like by your standard, it would be good for you to care about it. I'm not saying that's my standards, but yeah.
Sure. It would be an interest of, if it was true, it would be an interest of my well-being to care about it and believe in all that kind of stuff. That's not an intrinsic reason in the claim. That's what I'm saying is I care about my well-being, right?
Sure.
But there's also no intrinsic reason to care about my well-being either. So that's the problem. There is no you can't get to an ought from an is. Something's really bad. It doesn't, like, if you just don't, there's no intrinsic reason to care about something. It's the ought problem. Is kind of is that what you're pointing to? Okay.
No, that's not. I'm just trying to hear like just what you believe about things. I think like for me, it's helpful to get a background on what you believe about a lot of different things, but especially like in terms of obviously the big thing is like if a God exists and if he doesn't exist. I think that
Gotcha.
me, in my opinion, my one opinion out of millions of people, it doesn't matter. But like in terms of that, it helps me understand where you're even coming from to say anything, right? To even appeal to anything, you know what I mean? So it just helps me understand kind of where you're coming
Gotcha.
from.
So I'll tell you, it's like, so I'm a moral realist, right?
Moral realist. Sorry, did
yeah.
you say? Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, moral realist. Just like I mean, like the vast majority of philosophers are moral realists. They, it was like 97% of with PhD philosophers or something are atheists, and then like 85% of them are like moral realists. So like most of the people, like most of the experts in this, don't believe in God, believe in objective morality. Like it's not,
Yeah,
it's not. I'm not coming from some like really like weird point of view or anything like that.
But just from your perspective, when you said there is no intrinsic value in kind of what you were saying, how do you get to morality then if there's no intrinsic value even in what you're?
So because when we talk about morality, we're talking about well-being. If you care about your well-being, and people do, I mean, I've never seen anybody who doesn't care about their well-being, then there's your reason to care about morality. And
Gotcha.
to bring this back to when we talk about transitioning for minors, right?
So it would be for their well-being. You're saying,
yes. Mm-hmm. So
Gotcha.
if this helps them, it is objectively moral, and studies show that it does help them. So I'm not for to be clear, I'm not for giving a minor surgery. I don't want that. Yeah, I'm not for that.
But only if it helps them.
Well, the surgery in some cases probably would help them, but I don't think the risk are worth it. And until we get a better grip on diagnosing gender dysphoria and to what extent we have gender dysphoria, I think the surgery is I think the risk is too great. So there's just too many unknowns. That's why I'm not okay with that. So what I am for is the what you call it, hormone blockers, allowing people to go on hormone blockers, delaying puberty, pretty much. That's actually going to make the transition process later on. That's going to happen later on. It's going to make it much easier for them. So I'm for that. But
so you're saying whatever is going to benefit them, their well-being, into helping them live a more happy, prosperous life, and pretty much until they die. You're saying?
Well, I mean,
just for any reason. Like,
I guess
you want to help. Sorry, basically you're trying to help them because it's good for their well-being in terms of them existing and living on in a capacity, is what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, I would like to help everybody. So yeah, so like that's good for them, and it's also good for me. I don't like the fact that that transgenders are committing suicide rates at like much
absolutely
higher rates than everybody else. So this helps. What's even more important is education on transgenderism, right? Because there a lot of people they point to these statistics about how transgenders are committing suicide at these really high rates, and they're trying to link that to some sort of mental illness, and trying to say transgenderism is a mental illness and it leads to suicide, all that kind of stuff. And that's not really true. So because there's several more studies backing this up, and I could send this to you, but it shows that when transgender teenagers have the support of their family, especially their parents, which is most important, that suicide rate drops down to a level pretty similar that we see with cisgender children.
Yeah. I feel you on that in terms of suicide is sad always. What I don't mean to be facetious when I ask this, so don't hear my heart in that. But is suicide always sad?
Is it always sad?
Can I handle that one?
I mean, sure, go ahead.
Maybe not initially or apparently, and maybe not to the people you think it might be too. But the long and the short is, it's very likely always sad.
Yeah,
Because what's happening is that even if you genuinely feel like you're in a position in which no one cares about you, and even if you are in a
Yeah.
position in which no one cares about you, typically you might make minor impacts in which you're not aware. And
Hmm.
because of that, and because of the way that a person that has suicidal thoughts often thinks, it
Hmm.
ends up being something that they're doing not necessarily because their brain is telling them. It's because their brain is saying that there's there's no point, or that there's no worth in continuing. And
Yeah.
that in and of itself is what can be sad about suicide, even if you are genuinely in a place of, like, your family's abandoned you and you're out on the streets and you have no means of income or livelihood, and your health is failing, and if all the worst possible, if your well-being is the lowest it could possibly be without dying, and you think
Hmm.
that is the best outlet for continuing is just simply ending your life, you're in probably the worst situation. But in that moment, it's a sad thing to recognize that people can get there and the steps that led them there. So even if you don't think of it as sad, that, and they might not think of it as a sad thing, that I'm simply just shortening the amount of suffering that I'm going to have,
Yep.
the trip that got them there, and the mental state, and sometimes the physical state, and the steps that got to there, are some of the saddest conditions of humans in general, especially with the technology, science, and progress that humans have and are continuing to make, where we realize that things like, we could essentially, as the United States taxpayers, could end world hunger in a matter of 3 years and probably not even notice that an extra few cents was taken out of our paychecks. To still have someone in any place in the world die of hunger or die of suicide because of hunger and homelessness and etc. is an extremely sad circumstance.
Yep. So like sad for them, and then sad for the people who knew them and stuff, even if they don't
Yeah,
like
even if
experience
you're completely
pain
disconnected,
anymore.
yeah, even if you have
Yeah.
nothing to do with family or whatnot,
yeah. I mean,
the
So like
situation is sad.
if I
I,
wanted, so
I
like
won't
if I
play.
wanted to take myself out, it would be sad even if I wanted to like not exist anymore. Like I didn't want to feel any
I'm
pain.
not gonna put any sort of absolutes on it. I'll say generally it's sad.
Okay.
Because I thought you, for some reason I thought you were gonna go
Okay.
to Hitler because Hitler committed suicide. And I'm like, was that sad?
Oh
I
yeah,
mean,
no, I wasn't thinking.
oh,
I
okay. I
mean,
was like, because I thought it was
yeah.
good that Hitler killed
No,
himself.
no, no, no,
Like,
no,
Hitler
no,
dying is a
no.
good thing. But okay,
I mean, not to get too personal or anything, but I have depression, and I have previously dealt with suicidal thoughts. So, I mean, I can tell
Yeah.
you from at least a little bit of a personal experience that even in like the worst of circumstances, even if like the worst of your head, like even if everyone I knew hated my guts legitimately, even if that's what's reality or what my brain is allowing me to think in that moment,
Hmm.
it doesn't matter. The fact of me getting there and not having adequate help, not having adequate support, not having a support network, not having things like therapy, would be a sad situation because it may end up leading to that suicide. And what I think Triboulet is the whole argument is trying to make is that by having things, and this is something that he and I had previously discussed, having things like therapy for
Hmm.
people that have gender dysphoria is incredibly important because it allows you to express those thoughts. It allows you to express what's going on in your head and kind of talk to someone who's professionally trained to deal with this kind of thing. And they may not recommend that you have surgery. They may not recommend that you have hormone blockers. They may recommend these things, but that's, at least now you're in the hands of someone who's trained to deal with it, and they're willing to listen to you, and it's at least giving you some sort of mental support and mental outlet that a lot of people don't have, which is what leads to those incredibly high rates of suicide.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I definitely think there is. I mean, like you guys were saying, it can get complicated.
How about this? So like
Yeah.
there's a kid who says he's biological male, and it
Yeah,
says
you can use like my son for example.
okay, your son says he
Mhm.
feels like a girl, right? And so
Yep.
what would you do in that scenario?
Oh man, I'd be confused. I'd definitely be confused. I'd probably ask some questions. I would ask. I'd probably ask.
That's a good start.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I would ask.
I said
Questions.
that's
I would ask. What do you? I would ask. What do you mean by that?
that's a
That'd be
really
one of
good
the first-
start.
That'd be one of the first questions. What do you mean by that? I would ask. Yeah, I would just ask questions to try to draw him out to try to better understand what he was saying. Yeah, I mean that would be the first thing that I would do. I'd ask, what do you mean by that? And that would, I don't know exactly where that would lead, but that would be one of the first questions I would ask.
Yeah, that'd be
what
a
do you
really
mean
good
by
start.
that?
Yes,
Let's say hypothetically, I don't know how old your son is, but let's say hypothetically your
My son is 1.5.
Okay, let's say hypothetically your son starts talking, and 5 or 6 years old, your son expresses that he feels like a girl, and
Yep.
nothing kind of comes about it. You talk about it a little bit, you kind of listen, you've had a
Mhm.
good discussion about it. That was that, and then let's say hypothetically now your son is 9 or 10 years old, and your son comes
Mhm.
up to you and says, "Hey, we talked about this a while back, and I just wanted to let you know, like it seems to be progressing. I seem to feel more and more feminine as time goes on." How do you react now that your son's about to go through puberty?
Yeah, yeah. I think I would. I don't know if the right word is poke. Probably not the right word. But I would inquire a little bit about what he believes what feminine is, and why. Like what he would say. Like for example, give me an example of. You said I'm feeling feminine. I think that's what you said. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I mean,
Yeah. So
essentially, for
what?
instance, like
Well, yep.
I like the concept of knitting and wearing makeup. I like the concept of feeling attractive. I like the concept of
He likes girl things.
yeah. I like doing
Yeah,
things
no.
that are typically
Yeah.
societally
Yeah.
associated with females. So
Yeah.
like,
So
I like to
so-
watch rom-coms all day, and I cry
Yeah,
at the
yeah.
drop of a hat, that kind of thing.
yeah.
So that's going on. Now
not-
your son's expressing this to you.
Yeah, so I would say nothing is wrong with wanting to knit. That's not feminine. Watching rom-coms is, I mean, again, watching rom-coms is not, just to use these terms, right? We can still tease it out. Is not unmanly. Knitting is not unmanly. It's not just a woman thing or a man thing. Obviously, me as a Christian, I wouldn't encourage my son to wear makeup like that. I would encourage him to wear makeup. So to give you just a straightforward answer, and we can talk to the particulars, I would do my best to just coach him on what I believe is right. So like from the Christian perspective, nothing is. My son wouldn't be in so-called error for wanting to knit. You're feeling like you want to knit. Nothing's wrong with knitting. You want to watch certain shows. Nothing's wrong with watching a rom-com. But if you want to use more of the examples of, I want to wear like heels, right? If that's that's way different from like knitting in my mind, because obviously like culturally heels are for women, and generally.
Here's the problem with asking. Like you always start with just talking to the kid and asking what they mean by when you say you're trans, or you say you feel like a woman or a girl. Like, what does that mean? Yeah. There's always the possibility, especially when we're dealing with young children or even adolescent, they may not have the ability to articulate what they mean, but that feeling is still there. So,
sure.
If you go down a route of maybe just affirming your own beliefs, it may work. Yeah, but a lot of times
is it wrong?
It's just gonna backfire. Is it immoral?
Yeah.
Well, so
when I say wrong, I always mean moral. I don't. When I say
cool.
Wrong, I mean moral.
Sure, like you may have moral intent, right? But the act would probably be causing harm, because generally,
if it's causing harm, it's wrong. You would say. not that what I did. If I'm like kind of asserting what I believe on my
Mhm.
children, which all parents do, they assert
Yeah.
what they
So,
believe.
well, okay. Well, really quick to the morality thing, and we get back to the transcendence thing. So, like, I differentiate acts and intent, right?
Gotcha.
Yeah. So that's something you could have a moral intent, but the consequences was the act be immoral.
Gotcha.
So I'll separate them. So like you could have moral intent. Obviously, you're just trying to help your child, but what you're doing is not helping the child. Like
Gotcha.
Preaching at them or not that you were preaching at them, but
just open up Genesis on them. No,
what I'm saying is telling the kid, oh, there's nothing wrong with knitting, but you're still a boy and all that type of stuff. It doesn't work. Like, so they've had clinics all over the place where they tried to turn people untrans. I mean, you're probably familiar with the gay camps they were having, right? They were probably trying people like ungay. That was prior to the trans things. They don't work.
Right.
They never work. Like, even when people say they work, they end up reverting back to that. What you need to do is honestly seek professional help. And so here's the thing. So
I see what you mean with that.
Yeah, and despite there's always a risk, because we talk about whether or not since they're a child, there's always the possibility that they could change their mind, right? Stuff like that happens. And so, like, matter of fact, 99% of the cases where we see with adolescents with gender dysphoria, it tends to go away 99% of the time.
Yeah,
but get this. So the experts who are studying this stuff, they're really good at diagnosing when it's just temporary and when it's permanent. And that is, and the proof of that is in the low, the really high satisfactory rate of transitioning. When people transition, I was the most accurate numbers that I could find as far as people detransitioning after transitioning. I couldn't find any percent higher than 1. I couldn't find anything over 1%. The vast majority of people, once they transition, they like it and they stay that way, and it helps their livelihood. So they're really good at just filtering out. So this isn't just some sort of feeling in their head, right? This has an empirical basis. Saying that transgenderism is like just a feeling in your head is tantamount to saying that a heart attack is a feeling in your chest, right? So the feeling is one way that it manifests, but there is an observable, demonstrable, measurable phenomenon that is happening in your body. It is real.
So like someone who transitioned and then I don't even know what the right term is.
Detransition. Yeah.
And they're claiming that it wasn't good for their well-being. So it was wrong for them, but just not for the other person who would benefited.
No.
Like it was.
No. So
like if my son transitioned and you're saying like, hey, it's morally good and you ought to help them with it. Basically, is what you're saying.
Yes, if it's going to help them, it's good. They could also detransition later, and then they can realize it's not good. So then you won't actually know by from your standard, you won't actually know if it was morally good until the smoke clears. No, not necessarily. So here's the thing. So like we're not omniscient, and we can't always predict the consequences of our actions.
Sure, absolutely.
And when we discuss morality, like we can only talk about epistemology. That's it.
Yeah,
right.
Sure.
So there is the ontology, and it is objective. But when we talk about it, we're only talking about the epistemology. So so determining whether or not it's immoral, that's just epistemic, right? Mm-hmm. But it either is or is not moral. That's just that is a fact.
No matter the results, you're saying no matter the results.
Well, the results is what's going to make the act moral. So, like, for instance, if I slap you in the head with a brick, the results is what makes it immoral. It's immoral. So, like, so that's what's going to harm you.
Yeah, so that's what I mean in terms of like transitioning. The result could be that the person is happy with it. It affected their well-being, like in a positive way. But then if they transition,
even if they
then it wouldn't have been moral.
No, not
morally
necessarily.
right.
Not necessarily, because like I said, like harm and happiness is only one aspect of it. We also want to gotta talk about freedom too. Like moral epistemology is really complicated. You can make a decision that would be detrimental to your well-being, but you still should have the right to make that decision. So
Say that one more time.
You can make a decision that is detrimental to your well-being, right? So when I say, well, I'm talking about to your health, right? Or to your wealth, right? But you still should have the right to make that decision. That's what I was saying. It is complicated.
Like
you
have
freedom. You have freedom, security, safety, health, wealth, happiness. All of these things, and they don't always align. This is complicated.
I'm going to give you a really classic example to help you really glaze over what he just said, because I think it's important. Because I think what's going to happen, Joseph, is that if I say this, you're going to recognize, and I bet money, because I've had the conversation, that Triboulet will agree. That it's his opinion and mine as well, that as an adult, if I wanted to smoke crack, I should be able to do so because I have the freedom to do so, knowing that crack cocaine is an incredibly dangerous and addictive substance. Is it good for my well-being? No. Should I have the freedom to do so? Yes. And that's where it gets really complicated, because my freedom and my well-being are both on the line here. But what Triboulet would say, and I would agree to, is that at no point the government should get to say what I get to do with my body.
Yeah, because otherwise, like
unless it's hurting someone else's body, you're saying.
Well,
the government shouldn't no,
your
body.
Okay, so there are sometimes things that you could do that could be detrimental to somebody else's well-being, but not necessarily violating their rights. Like you can have a donut shop, you selling donuts for $1 per donut, and then I open one next to you and I'm selling it for 50 cents a donut, right? Yeah. And so I put you out of business, right? That's just competition, right? So I didn't violate your rights, even though something that I did was detrimental to your wealth. What it is that you didn't have a right to all of the customers that you were getting, right? There was equal opportunity. I jumped in and I got some too. That's what I'm saying. Like it is complicated, but if you look at one narrow thing and we just say health is all that matters, now all of a sudden anything that doesn't contribute to health is immoral. If we just look at health with happiness, then all of a sudden anything that doesn't contribute to health happiness is immoral. So that's what I'm saying. So like what I'm saying, it gets really complicated because you're weighing all of these things. Is it good for you? But if we ban something that isn't good for you, we're going to ban it for everybody. Just because you make a bad decision doesn't mean everybody should be prevented from making it. Yeah. Right?
So I don't mean to change too much. It's just interesting.
Okay, go ahead.
So by your standard, then what is your take on like abortion then? Like by your standard,
I'm pro-choice,
even though it hurts the well-being of the baby.
Yep. So here's the thing, because we talk about this is about
that's shocking.
Yeah, so because this is about bodily autonomy. First of all, if we're talking about a zygote that isn't even sentient, that doesn't have any sort of sense perception at all, like I said earlier, you don't have any moral obligations to it at all because it can't suffer, right? Because
what about 1 month?
Well, 1 month I think is sentient, isn't it? I don't know. So, but if we're talking about suffering, then it needs to be sentient. It needs to be able to have some sort of experiences, right? And if it can't do that, then you don't have any moral obligations at all. Like it doesn't even come into question. But to me, let's say
you have a moral obligation at 1 month.
I don't know.
Not you, but
as far as brain development, I don't understand. Let's say it's 8 months old. It's definitely let's go that. Let's say it's 8.
I would say you can say 3. It's clear.
Yeah, but
even 1 month really. Even
listen,
the
baby's moving around and solving math equations inside the womb, right? So it's definitely conscious, right? Okay. even then, like I would still be pro-choice. So because what this baby still has moral obligations, right? But it doesn't have a moral right to someone else's body, and that's what we're saying.
Let me challenge you on that perspective real quick.
Okay.
Because so you're a father, I'm a father, my wife's a mother, and there's plenty of mothers around here, right? One thing that I find is very interesting is a lot of times it gets brought up that, oh well, if the woman's life is at risk, she should have the right to, I would say, murder the child. That's what I would hold to. I wouldn't say like, so when they say, well, she should have that right if her life is at risk, or just if her life isn't at risk. But what I think is interesting about, I'll use the extreme example where the woman's life is at risk. What I think is interesting is most parents would say, that I know of, maybe they wouldn't say, I'll just say a lot of people I know and have heard would say, oh, nobody better mess with my baby. I'll die for mine. I'll die for my child. I'm sure you would. I'm sure you would as a father, right? I'm sure you would as a father. But just not in the womb.
Well, yeah, I would in the womb. So here's the thing. So like,
I'll die for mine, just not in the womb, though. Well, that don't make sense. That'll make sense.
But you don't have to. Like, there is no more obligation to die for your child.
But this what I'm saying though. This what I'm saying is interesting though, because people would hold that in high regard. Like, no, I will die for my child. That's what they would say.
Well, yeah.
Except I mean, in the
womb.
No.
Well, I mean, I might. What the first one? I like so.
And I would say I am moral. I would say I am obligated to die for my child, bro.
Okay, so some people would, and some people. Here's the thing.
Yeah, I would.
We should have a whole episode on that. That'd be
interesting. Yeah, sure. But like, okay, so you like. Even if I would die for, like, even if like I'd be willing to die for my child before she was even born, that doesn't negate a woman's right to her own body.
Oh, I'm not saying that she can't do it. I still think it's wrong. But I'm not saying she can't do it. I would still say it's immoral. I would still say it's immoral. But what I'm saying, I find it an interesting point that people would be so protective of their children and willing to die for them, but just not in the womb.
Well, those people are hypocrites. I am not. That's all I'm
saying. That's all I'm saying.
I hate to get like super
platonic. That's a hypocrite.
No, go ahead, Facade. Sorry.
I'm gonna quote a pretty interesting philosophical concept, and I don't necessarily agree with it, but for the sake of just making the argument, it's been stated that love is an expression of familiarity over time. And you'll find that if you really think about that statement, how true it is, right? Because before your child was developed, you really couldn't express any familiarity with it. But the more time you spend with your child, the more you tend to be familiar. And so people could technically just say that love is an expression of familiarity over time. So your moral obligation to your child is probably greater than that to your moral obligation to a stranger, because they're more familiar to you. But if that child's never born, you're never going to get familiar with it.
So here's my pushback on that. Even apart from so here's my pushback on that. So my child now is a 1.5-year-old, obviously, like you said, familiar with him, have seen him, have seen his smiles, his laughs, his giggles, his walking, his talking, right? All those are things that I got to experience, right? I don't experience that without him being in the womb and being developed and then being born, right? So from just how I feel about it, he was and is just as precious in the womb as he is now.
Do you hold that same feeling about your sperm cells?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of I find it.
I'm not calling you a liar. It just seems that would be a ludicrous stance to hold. You know.
No, here's what I mean by that. That has to happen for my son to be born. Like that has to happen. I have to have sex with my wife for that to happen. So it's very precious what is happening. Period. And transitioning from, okay, you had sex with your wife and now you found out she's pregnant, right? it didn't become precious when she told me that she was pregnant. It didn't become a precious thing. Obviously, I understand the distinction you're making in terms of now I have a different type of experience with my son now that he's outside of the womb, and now that he's still developing, but not developing as you could just go far. Yeah, as you can go far back, right? So, but I wouldn't say that the sperm cell is not precious. I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't hold that view.
But you wouldn't die for one of your sperm cells, right?
Sure, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
And you wouldn't die for like a zygote that doesn't have any sort of sentience, would you?
What do you mean by that?
A zygote. So would you die for a zygote that has no form of sentience?
So when your son was 1 hour old, I'm talking about like conception,
the tail has fallen off the sperm with the egg. As it enters the egg wall, the tail has fallen off the sperm. Mm-hmm. Now it is the full DNA of what will eventually become your son. Will you die for that?
Yeah, give me a scenario where I would have to die for it.
I'm gonna blow your wife's head off if you don't.
Well, now you're gonna kill his wife. No, that's a bad scenario.
Okay, so I'm gonna punch your wife.
Abortion is a let's just say no. Abortion is a real scenario.
So how about this?
You can't. That's absurd to even. That's absurd.
No, okay. How about this? And then I want to get back to the trans thing.
And you know that's absurd.
Okay, let's say I'm a magical wizard.
You have to go way back to make that point. That's absurd. You know it. Go ahead.
I was just making a point on. I wouldn't defend a sperm cell the same way you would a child, right?
Sure, I would say that's an absurd point.
So like
to my
your
point
moral
of abortion.
Your moral obligation, like kind of where does it begin?
Yeah.
But like I think we should kind of get back to.
Gotcha,
the whole transitioning thing. But like my whole point was like at some point, like at all points in time, your son was just a makeup of matter, and at some point you decided your life was worth giving up.
I say still makeup of matter. I say he's still a makeup of matter.
I know, that's what I'm saying. Like it was at all points in time that were makeup of matter, but at some point you decided that your life was worth giving up for his, right? So it just like to me it kind of seems like an arbitrary point, but anyway, I would
say that I think there's a clear distinction of when that would even be an actual possibility.
I don't think.
Okay, well, now this is the last word on that. I'm sorry. Okay, so would you be opposed to like gender affirming treatment of any kind, whether it's therapy, whether it's or hormone therapy or anything like that, counseling? Like, if a child says a biological boy says he feels like a girl, would you be opposed to any sort of gender affirming treatment?
Gender affirming treatment meaning affirm them in whatever they believe.
Yes, affirm them in their.
I wouldn't say affirm them. I wouldn't say affirm. Like I wouldn't say I would affirm my son in female. I wouldn't affirm my son in female.
Okay, well, let's take your son out of it. Like, would you be opposed to a child receiving gender affirming treatment?
I would.
Okay, why?
I would have to be consistent with my worldview in that I believe that God made us male and female, and getting to like the I know you mentioned
but God makes mistakes though, right?
What do you mean?
Well, so not everybody falls into even just according to biological sex. Like not everybody falls into that category, right? You can have like sexually ambiguous
an abnormal sex function type of thing. You're saying?
So that's a whoopsie on God's point.
Yes, I wouldn't say it's a whoopsie on God's point. I see how you get there.
Well, he did it on purpose.
So I would say that again, just to be consistent with my worldview, I would say that certain things that are abnormal or things that I would say there's an effects of sin is what I would say. Not that God made a mistake. I would never phrase it like that. As a Christian, I would never phrase it like that. But I understand from your perspective what you mean by that, though.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily say he made a mistake. You could say he intentionally made like intersex people, because so even with biological sex, not everybody always fit into that male and female category, right? And so there's also things that happens with this is still biological when we're talking about the gender, because that happens in the brain. You can have a brain that operates like a female inside of a male's body, right? So that's what's going on. And you're saying you would be opposed for gender affirming therapy because God made male and female.
I mean, more than just that, I would say that the right thing to do from my worldview, from the Christian perspective, is to best follow what you believe God would say to do, and how He has revealed things in Scripture, just to be consistent with my worldview. I wouldn't say that we should do.
So give me something specific. Like a boy says he's a girl. He thinks he identifies as a girl, right?
Yeah, I would say that. I would say that like, yes, I would say like we all would have, we all can have desires and I don't know the right word, desires or affections that that to be consistent would not be in line with who we were created to be, is what I would say, to be consistent, and trying to wrestle and work through those things. So like, for example, there was a guy who I used to go to church with, who he was attracted to same sex, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not like, so I would, to be consistent, my position would be working through him with that. I don't believe that it's an affection that that you would ought to have in terms of being a Christian. That's what I would say. Does that make sense? So not, I mean,
it does make sense.
And obviously,
problematic.
But again, from your worldview, you're free to do whatever you want, and from your worldview, I'm free to do whatever I want.
No, neither one of us are free to do whatever we want. Like,
what do you mean?
I can't just kill you.
Yeah, you can.
Why can't I do that?
Because you can if you want. What do you mean? Murder happens all the time.
No. But it would be
especially in the womb.
Okay, no. Okay, well then, according to your worldview, I can do that too, because I can just go around killing people.
You can, but
that's what I'm saying. So it would be wrong under my worldview as well.
Why?
Because it violates well-being.
It would
you're
detrimental to well-being.
Killing you.
That is the opposite of well-being.
Yes, killing you is not good for you. That's why.
Right.
So when we talk about morality, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about well-being. That is objective. So for me, for me, when I look at your worldview, it seems like to me you can do whatever you want, because God has a set of rules. Then He goes around telling His people to break the rules. Like, so he says like, thou shalt not murder, right? But then He goes around telling His people to do things that I would consider to be murder. Right. So like, to me, that seems like He can do whatever He want. You know,
like God. You mean like God?
God can, he can tell.
God can tell people to do
whatever. Yeah, He can tell people.
Or
I mean, so like God being.
So yes.
Yeah, he has. Yeah, I mean, he absolutely.
Yes,
he absolutely can. He absolutely can do it.
That is not objective
of life.
That is not objective morality at all. That is definitely that is very subjective morality.
It's subjective to God's whims.
What's the definition of objective?
Mind independent.
That's the definition of objective.
Yes. Yeah. So yes. So in philosophy, when they're talking about objective morality, they mean something that is not based on opinion. So, for instance, let's say, okay, if there's a highway and we want an objective speed limit, right? Mm-hmm. If I say it's 45 miles per hour, it is objectively 45 miles per hour. So you have to. So when you drive a car, right, you can just look at the sign. I can look at the sign, and we can, without communicating with each other, we can go the exact same speed, because there is an objective standard that we're going to. If the sign says something like drive at a safe speed, then it would be subjective, right? Because it's based on our opinion.
Because I might have a different view of safety than you do.
Yeah, and you would say God is just exercising His opinion, is what you would say.
Yeah, that's definitely what it is. It is definitely
the difference
by what
is that, at least my opinion is, that the difference in me having an opinion and your God having an opinion is that if your God is real, He just has a lot more power than I do.
Yeah, He's a powerful God with an opinion.
Extent of our opinion.
Right, just like if I had a machine gun right now, that wouldn't make my opinion any more relevant. I'd be more physically powerful. Sure, I could have. I could.
So how
Yeah,
do
I mean,
you
like-
define opinion when you say that if
I take a stance on something.
Yes, that's pretty
so
much.
would it be a would
Yeah, because
objective.
objective opinion does not come into play at all.
yeah, so like would this be a fair definition for an opinion? I'm just reading straight off the internet where it says a view or judgment formed about something, comma, not necessarily based on fact or knowledge. You would affirm that as a true statement?
Generally, I mean, I don't see
So
any
you would-
problems. I don't see any problems with it yet.
So you would say that God has a view or judgment formed about something, i.e. the world, how we ought to live, things like that, right? Not necessarily based on fact or knowledge is what you would say God is doing when you
It
say
doesn't
he's
have to be.
exercising
Well,
opinion.
yeah,
Not
not necessarily,
based on fact.
but it could be. It could be. But
Like, just
even
like, for
if-
instance, like in your stance, Triboulet,
Yep.
like yours is based on well-being. So, like, we know objectively that if I took a brick and slammed it against someone else's head, there will be negative
Mhm.
consequences. And if our goal or our object is to have well-being, by slamming a brick against someone else's head, we've gone against that object, that pathway. What we've done is we've said, like, okay, we know that bricks meeting with people's heads is bad for them. Scientifically,
Yep.
we've proven it. You know it. Like, it's general fact. And if we say the goal of us living is to not cause direct brain damage to someone else, slamming their head with a brick is definitely detrimental to their well-being. Whereas if I'm God, I can say the same argument. It's just that God's not necessary to make the argument.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, omniscience has nothing to do with it. So is that where you were going to? Like, not necessarily based on knowledge or facts. Is that?
Yeah, just trying to understand how
Yeah.
how you're meaning that.
Yeah.
God
yeah,
is just
I mean,
exercising opinion.
Omniscience goes into
So you would say that
it goes
he
into
is-
epistemology. It doesn't define things.
right.
I
So you
thought
would
he
say
was- I
that
thought
you
were
would say
going the
that
other way of the, sorry, go ahead.
no, you're good. So you would say that there is no objective truth. There's just subjective truth of any
No.
kind. Even if
No. There's definitely like objective truth. Reality. If reality is objectively true, it is. Well, I'm
Right.
not saying reality is true, but reality is reality. So like that is.
Sorry, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say objective truth in terms of like morality. I'm sorry. I meant like, sorry. It means in terms
Anything.
of reality, like objective morality. That's what I meant. Not just truth that like there is a reality, right? But I mean, you're saying in
Yeah,
terms of morality
I mean-
from the Christian
Well,
world.
so here's the thing. So
all subjective.
when we talk about morality, we are talking about well-being. That's why whenever someone says something,
not just well-being, but also like freedom and things like that.
well-being,
Those are all
well-being encompass
encompassed in
all of those
well-being,
things.
yeah.
So well-being, you would see well-being as the umbrella term.
Yes, because when I say
Yeah.
well-being, so I'm talking about freedom, I'm talking about safety, security, health, wealth, happiness, and there
Umbrella,
could
gotcha.
be
So,
there could be other things that could go in there as well. But that is generally what I'm talking about, and that's what anybody's talking about. Like when they say that, because when you say something's immoral, if you ask me to justify the fact that if I say A is immoral and you look for a justification for A being immoral, what you're going to want from me is an argument demonstrating some sort of harm to someone.
Mhm.
If I can't show that it doesn't harm anyone in any way, you're going to be like, then why are you saying it's immoral? Well,
I
then
thought I heard you use this example before about if someone steals from someone that maybe it wasn't you. I've watched a lot of different things. If they take something from someone and they needed it right to like maybe feed their child, so they stole milk, but the other person already has enough of it, you would say that's not immoral to steal.
no, that's immoral. That's immoral. That's immoral.
Okay, maybe it wasn't you. Okay.
Yeah.
So like, so even if they had a
I have
a
a million
truckload.
gallons of milk. You only have you have no milk.
None.
You need something to feed your kids,
and it's immoral to take it, you would say,
you
right?
steal from me. Yeah, because the thing
Gotcha.
we
Gotcha.
have to consider the more precedent, because now we're gonna say, because like when you make a decision to do something and we say that is justified, we are creating moral precedent. And now we're what we're saying is it's okay to steal long as you need it more than the other person. This is totally unethical.
Right.
I'm not okay with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Right.
a good way to kind of consider when we talk about like objective morality is having a goal in mind. And in the case of moral realism, at least for Triboulet, myself, and many others, the goal in mind is well-being. And so if you do something that goes against that goal, what you've done is you've committed an immoral act. So if having well-being includes and encompasses Triboulet's health, by me stabbing him, that's an act
moral.
of immorality. But by me giving money to him so he could go buy food might be an act of morality because it would help his well-being, right? So when we consider it, we're doing it with a goal in mind, and that goal is for every individual sentient being's well-being. And so when we say my opinion, it can be based on objective reality, because objectively slamming a brick against your hand would be immoral because it would be against your well-being, versus saying I'll do whatever I want because I have an opinion on it. That doesn't have a goal in mind, right? That just says like I feel this way about it, or I think this way about it, right? Now you can use logic and deduction or even good knowledge and truth to help define those morals, which, I mean, by all means, if your God exists, he could very well be doing. But what I think the problem of subjective morality with a God is that there's, like I said, there's really no difference in a really powerful being and a really weak being with an opinion if it's just an opinion.
That's what it is.
When
It's just an opinion.
We're
You say
looking at
there-
goal.
Because
Sorry.
if it's based on a mind, it is subjective.
Yeah,
So you would
when
say,
we're looking
like,
at a goal,
by
if everybody
definition-
agrees upon the goal, then we have an object in mind, right? Like we're going towards something. We're making strides towards a specific certain thing. So if the goal is to win a race and we know where the finish line is, we may all take different paths to get there, but we know what the goal is, right? But if we say, all right, there's some rules in the race and you decide to break those rules, well, I mean, now you're kind of changing how the game works. If we don't have any set of, if we don't have any reason, you know, if we don't have any goal in mind to pursue to or to drive towards, and in the case of moral realism, that is well-being, then you're right, there is no moral objectivity. But to have someone that has infinite strength to give an opinion doesn't fix that problem.
So you would think the only distinction between if God exists would be that he has the infinite strength and like people don't. Like you would say that's the only
literally
distinction.
it.
He's literally the guy with the biggest guns or most bombs or whatever. Like if you could strong arm people into doing what you want, because without it, you're essentially could destroy them. So you get to make the rules because you have the most power. You're the bully, you're the gangsters, the mobs, the government, whatever you want to call it, Big Brother. That's literally what God would be if all he has is an opinion, and he says other people should listen to it.
So would it be that it's because he has the biggest guns power, or
Doesn't matter. He just
also
has an
that
opinion.
he
For
also that if it's true
reason,
that sorry.
I was gonna say like for whatever reason that this agent could exhibit his power on everyone else,
Right.
It does not make the opinion objective, because that's just not the ingredients of objectivity. You can
So
add
is
as much
the-
power to the opinion as you want. It doesn't make it objective.
Is objective truth something that is true for everyone, whether they agree with it or not? Like, would you say like that is objective truth? Like that
So I accept the correspondence theory of truth. So something's true if it corresponds to reality. So and so I wouldn't say that something is true for this person or true for another person. I would just say it is true. If it corresponds to reality, it is true. That's just what it is.
What do you mean by correspond to reality?
So for instance, like I say, like the sun is white, right? And that statement, the sun is white, that's true. That statement is true because the sun is actually white. That is the color that it is. And so if it's not that color, then it would be a lie. So the statement, the sun is white, is true if and only if the sun is really that color.
Right. So
It doesn't
like,
matter your opinion of
sorry.
the color of the sun, or my opinion, or Triboulet's opinion. It doesn't matter at all. It matters whether the sun is actually white or not.
Yeah. And I hope you don't go a direction that. Go ahead.
No, sorry, no.
I don't want to predict your argument, but
no. So
I just saw a problem with the statement. But go ahead.
So like if God exists and He created all things, and like to your point, if He says, "This is wrong because I say," right, and the reality is that it's wrong.
No,
right. So
the reality that it's wrong.
Well. So here's what I mean.
Okay,
so
you don't need God for it, then, right? Because it's just the reality dictates it being wrong.
So here's what I would say. If God exists, right, created all things, He knows what's best for us and how we ought to live, right? I'm just assuming that position.
That He's omniscient, sure.
Yep. So if He were to say, it's immoral to murder, like for us, right? Like He's the giver of life. He can take life if He gave life, right? But for me to go kill you, it would, if He says it's immoral to do that, then in reality, it is immoral no matter what I think.
Cool.
That would be in your mind subjective truth.
Cool. We're going to place. Okay.
In your mind, in your mind, is there a possibility for it to be subjective and objective? I'm just trying to understand. I'm not trying to make like.
How about this?
So like,
okay, so like you say,
like, would you say
we're talking about, so like we're saying, since God is omniscient, He knows what's best for humans, right? And so He says something's wrong because He knows it's not good for their well-being, right? So let's say like God says like stealing is wrong because He knows stealing is not good for their well-being because He has omniscience and He's able to decide calculate all this information, right?
Yes, I would. So before you go on, I wouldn't say that like the goal would be for my well-being as the world would affirm my well-being, because I know you're probably familiar with this. Like, it is a good thing for me to suffer for Christ. So my well-being in the world's mind might be, you need to have XYZ, you need to be prosperous, you need to have the best health, right? But it actually could be used for me not to have the best health, right? That's what I mean. Like, it's not necessarily my well-being being my health or like whatever I could apply to well-being. If suffering is good,
I mean, I don't think suffering is good for anybody. Like, the suffering for Christ thing is just, it's not something I'm dealing with. Especially if I'm omnipotent, I don't need people to suffer for me, and it just seems to be superfluous and just kind of cruel to ask people to do that. So
I wouldn't say it's a neat. Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
What else want to say? So so you were saying, so like God outlaws A, right? Because He's omniscient, He knows that A is bad for the world, right?
Yeah, so like He's the standard. He's perfect, right?
Wait a minute. So okay, so you said He's standard. He's standard.
He's the standard. I said sorry.
So okay, so is A immoral because God decided it to be? So is A bad for the world because God decided it to be bad for the world?
What do you mean? Like is it bad because
does He say that murder is wrong because murder is wrong and He can see that it is wrong and He knows that it is wrong? Or is it wrong because God says it's wrong, therefore it is wrong?
Ask that one more time. Sorry.
So does God say that murder is wrong because He is omniscient and He knows that murder is bad for people, so He can see the outcome of what murder does and the effects it has on people? Or is murder wrong because God says murder is wrong? So it doesn't matter whether he's omniscient or not. Like, sure, he still could be, but because he says it, it is so.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't lean to the first one in terms of like he's not looking at something to say, oh, I'm looking at this standard and I see that this is this, right? Like, let me then put that within myself to be the standard. Like I would say he's the standard, but I wouldn't make a distinction with only because he says. That's not, I wouldn't phrase it like that. But yeah, because like partly because he commands, right? Like he commands, but also like he's perfect, he is holy, set apart. So just him.
Sure.
So go ahead.
Guys,
sorry, go ahead.
Can I give you a hypothetical real quick?
Yeah.
So let's say hypothetically that in like 5 years from now, man invents this machine that converts light into sound for whatever reason. Like, I mean, we already do that, but let's just say hypothetically, we come up with a way for humans to do something we've never done before, and God says that, oh, that's really good. Well, I'll get cloning, because cloning is really not talked about in the Bible. Let's just say we come up with a way to clone people, and God's like, that's good.
We won't.
Everyone should clone people, right? Like, you should just clone people as much as you can because God says so. Could God command cloning to be good, and it would be good? If God commanded cloning to be good, would cloning be good? Or is cloning good because God sees that it is good, and he just says like,
he already said he doesn't accept that one.
Right. You're talking about humans. You're talking about humans, right? You're talking about humans.
No,
yeah, like humans,
general,
right?
Like the concept. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't have to be cloning. It's got color.
Anything A.
Can God color? Is coloring
I think
good because God says so? If God said coloring is good, would coloring be good?
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I think you may have confused them. So let's just A, right? So A is immoral because God determined it's not immoral. Is that what you're saying?
A is immoral because what?
God determined it to not be immoral. Yes.
So I would say, he determines things, but also his character is perfect. So it is not in line with the character of God, is what I would say. Not just that because God could change his character and then no.
God can't change his character.
So I would say that God is consistently morally good.
He can't change his character.
And what do you mean by change his character? What do you mean by change his character?
Well, so
God say that murder's good.
You mean
just want to make sure he's following the train of thought because it sounds like you said that like morality is based on God's character, right? And so I'm asking, could God change his character just with it in a way to where murder is now good?
What do you mean by like, so now murder is good? Like I can kill
God
you?
Says
What you saying?
Murder's good.
Yeah, because you're saying morality is based on his character.
Right. So I would say God can take life whenever he wants, right? And then like getting to like the Old Testament
and it's
where
good. He has a right to do it.
Yeah, he has the right to because he's the creator of life. So, yeah, it's not. It's never wrong for God to take me at 2 or 80.
Okay. How about this? You're probably gonna. I know I'm not gonna say your name, but I know you're gonna watch this later. This is not a trap.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I have a friend who watched this and said this was a trap, and it's not what it was.
No. No. Sorry. Go ahead.
No. So you're saying when God does something, he has he can murder people because he made them, so that's his right.
So I wouldn't say murder in a sense of like it's
Kill.
wrong.
Yeah,
like
it's not wrong when he do it.
He can take life. Like if he created life, he can take life.
He can do whatever he wants.
He can do whatever he wants, but not like, for example, God cannot lie, right? But that's not an impugnment on his character because he's holy, he's righteous, he can't sin.
Okay,
this is what I was saying. Yeah.
God made children, right?
Sorry.
God made children, right?
Made children.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're
Just
saying
like
like it would be wrong for him to like take the life of
Can
a
he kill
child.
children?
And kill
Can,
children.
can God kill children? Because he
God
made them
can
too,
God
right?
Yeah, so God can take just like my life he can take
Yeah,
whenever
he
he
can take a child's
wants.
life.
And he can take a child's life whenever he wants because
Yeah.
he's God. So not
Can
oh sorry, go ahead.
can God rape children?
Absolutely not.
Why not?
He doesn't affirm that to be good.
No,
He's
but,
not
but
it's not
but it would be good if he did it. So I'm asking. So why wouldn't
it would sorry, go ahead.
you're saying it wouldn't be good even if God did it?
He wouldn't do it.
But why not?
Well-
It wouldn't be immoral. It wouldn't be
Why
violent.
would-
It wouldn't
So,
be
but-
immoral,
but
right?
Why wouldn't it
Because
be
God is
immoral if he
but-
killed them?
morality.
But by that logic, you would say that he could lie.
No,
No.
I
If you're saying he can do anything,
No,
could
I wouldn't
lie.
say he could. No. I don't know. I'm not saying. So I'm not. I wouldn't say that he could lie. But
Why? Why not? Why wouldn't you say he could lie?
Because by your definition, what he says is truth.
Yeah.
So
That's
it would be an
why.
oxymoron to say it's a lie. But for instance,
Right.
when we asked you just a second ago, could God kill people? You said you didn't want to use the
Yeah.
murder because of implications, right? And then we asked, could God
Yeah, I don't
kill
mean like
children, right? But
Mhm.
if
Yeah, he could
God
take
killed
life. He
children,
could take life.
it's a good thing because God doesn't do bad things, right?
Can God have non-consensual sex with a 3-year-old?
No, that's completely out of. God is not. He doesn't have sex.
No, but
God doesn't have. God doesn't have sex.
Can he order someone?
God doesn't
else
have.
to do it?
God doesn't have sex with his creation.
Can
That's totally absurd,
I'm-
and he doesn't have. He doesn't have sex with his
could he
creation.
order someone else?
That's
or
not
command
even a-
someone else to do it.
To take life,
To
like
have,
in the
No, no,
to
to
have
rape
sex with a
a kid.
child.
to rape a kid.
Yeah, could he command someone else to do it?
What do you mean by that? Like he can
Well,
tell
for instance,
me to
like
go rape
in
a kid.
the Old Testament, he commanded Moses to kill the Amalekites and not leave any living person.
Could he command
And
Moses?
you
not-
would say that
not
God,
rape.
being all good, that when he
Yeah.
commanded Moses to do so, that it was good for Moses to do so.
So here,
Could
so here's what I
God
would.
give the command to another human to have sex with a child?
No,
Why
Wouldn't-
not?
no,
What is
but-
stopping
but
him from
in ter-
doing so?
but I'll get to the first question about the murder thing because I think that's important, right? So I would say the consistent Christian worldview would be that all men are under the wrath of God, right? We all sin and fall short. I know you guys have heard this. So all
Yeah.
people have sinned and are rightly under the
I can grant you the
Yeah.
murder.
yeah. So rightly
I'll
under
just
the wrath
give
of
it to
God,
you.
right?
Mhm.
Yep. So God, in terms of the rape thing, doesn't have sex with his creation, right?
No, that's not what we're saying. No, no.
It's
Make someone
impugn to
else
his
do it.
to his character. It's an impugn to his character,
Could
and
he
he would
command
say
another
he wouldn't
person to do it?
to rape. You're saying?
Yes. Could he command?
No.
For instance,
I've-
Moses, or for
No,
instance,
he wouldn't-
Abraham, when he's told to kill his son, right? You're literally talking about doing a terrible, what most people would consider a terrible, atrocious act to a child. In the exact case of Abraham killing his son, right? You're told to go and murder your child. But you would say,
Yeah.
God, being all good in his goodness, that was a good act. Now, we know in the story that Abraham
He didn't do it
end
because
up
it
killing
points
his
to
son, right?
Jesus.
But
Yeah, points to Jesus.
you would say if Abraham was told to do it and he did it, he would be following God's command, which was good. So if God commanded Abraham to rape his son before murdering him, would that not also be a good act?
No,
Why not?
What's stopping it?
that's a complete perversion of God's justice. He wouldn't say, "I'm rape them," right? Rape them. He wouldn't say that.
So
Murder is
no.
worse or better?
Let me.
Sorry. Go ahead.
So,
go ahead.
so could God? So God can morally kill someone, right? Or he can morally order someone to kill somebody.
Yep.
I'm asking, can he morally order someone to rape somebody?
Could he? You're saying?
Yes.
Yes.
No.
Okay. Why not?
Then
no,
there must
hold
be
on.
something
Stop.
that
Let me.
stops him.
No, because I'm like, well, why not?
Sorry. Say that again.
Why couldn't he morally order someone to rape somebody?
It's not in his will.
I mean, What? I mean, so
is
what?
God's will
Why
limited?
no, hold on, no. We're kind of going off. Okay,
sorry.
I don't think so, but
let's just say like, I'm asking. I'm not asking if.
Like
if
it's not.
someone,
Like,
I'm not asking
wrong.
if someone.
It's not
I'm not
wrong
asking if
because
someone
you're-
wills
sorry.
to do it. Right? Because it's just a hypothetical, right? So
Right,
let's.
right.
Okay, so he could like he could order someone to kill someone else, right? Could, because it may not be in his will, it may not. But we're asking, could he do it? Yes. The answer is yes. Right? He won't do it unless it's his will.
No,
The-
I mean, we know
the
he
answer-
did it, for
sorry.
instance, in like the story of Abraham, right? He literally ordered Abraham to kill his son.
Yeah, I thought you were talking about rape. Yeah, not
But,
rape.
like, the question is, what makes rape different than killing in this exact instance? Is there something that would prevent God from being able to do so because it's rape, or is it?
Oh, okay. I got you. So you're saying like rape would be the standard being well-being, and then God would be upholding to well-being versus like his word.
Well, if
right?
he wouldn't do it for some reason, I'm not giving a reason why God wouldn't. If God is all powerful, I don't see why God couldn't command anything he wanted.
But by that logic,
he will. I'm saying he could. Just like God could have commanded, and he did command Abraham to kill his own son. If God truly is all powerful and goodness conforms to what he commands, then if God were to command Abraham to rape his own son, not only God could do it, but it would be good because God said so.
say that last part again.
So not only could God command Abraham to kill his son, and it would be good. You said so earlier. God could also command Abraham to rape his son, and it would also be good because God commanded it. So all Abraham would be doing is following a command given by God, which is good because you're following God's commands.
Yeah. So So I'm following your logic. So I would say though, with the revelation of Scripture, it's clear that God would not do that and can't do that because of the revelation of Scripture. Is what I would say.
Would not do that, and
But,
I'm not saying he would. I'm saying, but you said he cannot do that. So is there something
like not because there's
him?
Yeah, nothing preventing him, but it's not his will. He wouldn't do it. So I would say there's no standard
That's
above
not
God.
where we're asking. So that's not what we're asking. So regardless of if it's for instance, it is not my will to drive to McDonald's and get a cheeseburger, but I could do it. So we're talking about potentiality, not actuality. I could drive to McDonald's. I just don't want to right now. So that's what I'm asking. Can God morally order someone to rape someone else?
No, I would say in light of Scripture, no.
And why not? Because you said it's not his will.
I would say in light of Scripture, no.
Okay, wait a minute. Okay, but we already settled it. We already settled this. Like so, like saying someone saying that whether someone has the will to do something or the potential to do it are two different things, right? Right? Do you agree?
Say that
having the will to do something and the potential to do something are two different things, right? Like I don't will to go to McDonald's and get a cheeseburger, but I have the potential to do it. I'm physically able. I can get up, go to my car, and do it. Okay,
right.
So I'm not going to do it because I don't will to do it. But what I'm asking is, am I capable of doing it? Of course I am. Of course I am capable of doing it. So what I'm asking, so will is totally irrelevant. We're not talking about will. Can God?
I would say why and by what standard is it totally irrelevant?
Well,
because God's
capabilities. That's
that's it.
Right.
Will and capabilities are two different things.
Yeah,
I'm capable of.
Would God just, ask everybody to shoot everybody else in the face? That's not what we're asking. Like, we're not asking what God's desires are. We're asking, is there a limit to his capability? Is there anything that would stop him, or is there anything that would limit him from being able to command others to rape children and it would be wrong?
Anything limiting him, like above himself, you're saying?
Any reason for that? Is there any reason at all?
Well,
Because if not,
himself-
then God can do
so,
it, right?
how about it? Let's
Yeah,
just jump.
himself.
Let's just jump the gun. And so in this scenario, let's say in this, God willed that someone rape someone else, right? Is it still immoral? Because we already established the fact, if God will that someone kill someone else, it is not
Yeah.
immoral. All right. So now let's say in this scenario, God wills that someone rapes someone else. Is that immoral?
Immoral. No, it's God. So it would not be moral for God to do that, not because of anything over him, because of what he's already declared and decreed.
But God could change his mind, right?
So change his mind in terms of what? So by your standard, when you say that, for example, in this scenario, God would do X, Y, Z, you would have to afford, well, in this scenario, God could deceive people if he wanted to.
Sure.
Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah,
But
sure.
that is,
I don't see why an omnipotent being couldn't do that. I don't
Right.
see the problem with either of those things.
and right. So I see what you're saying. So you're saying there would be no problem with God deceiving people if he wanted to.
Well,
Yet,
according to the
if
way
he-
you
It would be.
define things,
It wouldn't even be immoral.
Yeah,
So
how-
I'm asking, could you do something and it still be moral? Like, just like I could will to go, like I don't will to go to McDonald's, but I'm capable
Right.
of going to McDonald's and it being moral.
Right. Right.
So, like, but the
that-
questions leading up to here, right? Like what we're asking and kind of where we're getting at is that we asked you, like, is what God does that mean it's moral? And you said, yeah, because his character and his being is perfect, right? So anything that God does is, by your definition, moral. So if God commands me to kill someone and I follow that order, I have done a moral act because I have followed the command of God.
Like in the Old Testament.
Yep, exactly.
Yep.
Just like that. So the next question we're trying to get at, and just to cut through it all and get to the end of it, is if God commanded someone to rape someone else, why would that not be moral? Because you just said that anything God commanded another person to do would in fact be moral because God said so. Now God is commanding someone to rape someone else. What makes that immoral?
So anything in light of his revealed word, right? So anytime that rape, like we're using an example of rape.
Yeah, we're using the most egregious and outlandish possibility that we can come up with, even though most people would say murder's worse.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because,
no, go ahead. You can finish.
I was just gonna say, like, the long and the short is that we're coming up with this really extreme example of something. Because if God commands it to be moral, and it is moral, then if God commanded rape, then rape would be moral.
Yeah, so I would say in light of scripture, it's clear. So this is the hard thing because I would never say he could do something that is outside of what he has designed to be. So anytime that rape is mentioned in the Bible would be condemning it in that sense. So he would not do. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I keep cutting you off. Go ahead.
No, you're good. I don't mind.
Well,
I like the back and forth. You can come here.
It's to me, your reasoning sounds circular.
I see what you mean. Yeah.
Yes, because we're asking you
because
when I ask you, is it immoral because God says so? And then when you say, well, he had already determined it in his word, that's literally just saying God said so. Because that's just God's word. Yeah. Right. So
I see what you mean by that.
So if God's word said it was okay to rape children, then it would be okay.
But but here's the thing. Here's the distinction I think that I'm making, right? By your logic, I could say if God says he could lie, then it would be okay. Except scripture reveals that is not in line with what with his character and what he has already revealed in his word. So I wouldn't so your standard of if he did this, I can't apply that just to anything. For example, could God recreate the universe? Obviously, I'm saying from the Christian perspective, not saying you believe this. Could he recreate things and start over at Adam and Eve? Like, could he do that? I would say, in light of Scripture, he's not going to and wouldn't. And like theologically,
but that's not an answer to the question you just asked.
But I would say he's not he wouldn't do it and is not going to do it. I wouldn't.
That's not an answer to the question you just asked though. You said like, could God start over from Adam and Eve? And then your answer is,
so that
is not an answer.
Yeah,
so
capability. You're answering.
Someone asked, can you go to McDonald's? And then I say I won't. That is not an answer to the question. Can I build a universe from? Can I restart the universe? And then saying, well, I won't restart the universe. See, that's not an answer to the question.
So
you're asking about potentiality.
So for example, so I would say, so if I were to say, God can do it, like God can restart the universe.
That's an
answer.
answer.
Here's the problem with that. I want to be careful how I phrase this. He won't lie. He's already revealed in his word what is going to happen. So he's not going to do that. So
that's what your reasoning is doing.
No. So I mean, I can't in terms of like the reasoning part, right? I can't reason in terms of the Christian perspective. You're asking me about God, right? More than his revealed word and truth. I can't give you an answer outside of what God has revealed in his word and it be correct about God.
Okay, that's fine. Can we pause right there real quick? According to his word and his scripture, is there anything that he is incapable of doing?
Well, lying.
I mean,
okay, so lying.
Yep.
Is there any act God is incapable of committing besides lying?
Anything that would be I forgot the word. Sorry. Silly violation. Anything that would be in violation of what he's revealed in his word. I can't list off the number of things that he in terms of can't do, like he's a limited God, like he can't create a squared circle, or he can't could he make a sun and an earth be together and life would exist on the planet?
I don't see.
Does that make sense?
Why not? Yeah, but I don't see why he couldn't do that. I mean, I can see why he wouldn't be able to make a square circle, but as far as
like Earth and the sun would be the same. Would be the same thing.
Yeah, that's just physics. There's no logical contradiction in saying God can make people to live on the sun.
What I'm talking about, like you're saying, could he do something as in anything?
Yeah,
he can do. So I don't know the endless amount of things he could do or won't do. I just know what he's revealed in his word.
Right.
Is what I would say.
My question is, in his word, is there any limit to things that he could do? Like, with exception of lying being the obvious exception to the rule, you would say that God created our universe, right? So what you're saying is God is capable of creating another universe because he at least created one. So he has the capability of creating universes. I'm not asking will he.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, you, he has the capability to create the universe.
Yeah,
cool. So he has the He has the capability.
Sorry, go ahead.
No. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I wanted you. We keep cutting you off. Go ahead.
No, I don't mind. I don't mind. You can finish.
So I just want to say that. So we established that he has the capability of creating the universe, but he's not going to because he doesn't will it. Right?
He has the capability of creating the universe.
Yeah, that's what you just said. He could.
Yeah, like he could create life. He could create these things.
He could do it.
He's not going. But
he's not necessarily. That doesn't mean he's going to.
Yes, he's not going to because he doesn't will it.
Right.
Cool. So now I'm asking. All right. Okay. What I'm asking: could God morally command to rape children?
He doesn't deem it. He doesn't deem it to be good. So he doesn't deem it to be good.
No. If he deemed it to be good, it would be good.
So, but here's the thing. I can't, from the Christian perspective, say that God would deem anything that he would say is evil. I can't deem
how about
in
this?
terms
How
of.
about this?
So I see. I know where you're trying to go with the whole like, and I'll let you finish. I know what you mean because like you're putting like one thing up here, like, hey, like you're saying he could do this, and if you're saying he can't do this, then is God appealing to something outside of himself? As I think.
Yeah, that's where we're going. So
yeah, right. So he doesn't. So I would say the Christian perspective isn't. And again, I would say that in all of my knowledge of studying the Word of God, right? Like I don't know it inside and out. So I even remember you guys brought up a few passages that I had to go back and read in terms of like the prophecy thing to better understand, right? So, but what I mean is, when God would, when God is holy, God is righteous, God knows all. So not just that, like, okay, he would deem something and it would be so, and it would be right, right? I can't say that God is going to do something that he himself would not decree as a good thing to do. I can't say that, yes, he could do something that he doesn't decree to do. So I think that's the distinction. He but from that logic, I should be able to say, well, God could deceive people if he wanted, but he's not a deceiver. So I can't say
God definitely deceives people. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, right? He's definitely deceives
so in
people.
terms of, so sorry, poor wording. So I mean in terms of like the lying, right? Like that's what I mean by like I'm lying to you. I'm going to tell you something, Joseph, that is not true, right? About myself, about my character, about what you ought to do. I couldn't say, yeah, he can do that too because he's God.
In 2 Thessalonians chapter 5, he says it'll cause a strong delusion to make you believe a lie. So God is capable.
We can right. So we could go to that. We could go to that passage because I don't think that is what you're talking about in terms of God lying.
Oh, I'm
in terms of sinning.
He's making
in terms of sinning.
A lie.
But go ahead.
I was going to ask, like, would you think, when you say that in the absence of God's decree, that rape would be in a state of moral neutrality?
Absence from God's decree?
Yes. Absence of God's decree. Let's say God never decreed it. Would moral rape?
Yeah, like God doesn't exist, right?
Would you never decreed it? He just never spoke on it at all. Would it be in a state of moral neutrality?
I think I can't distinguish him not decreeing it and not existing. So let's take.
You're so reformed, dude.
But I know, right? But I don't even label myself that. That's funny that you said that. But let's take the distinction between like him not existing, right? Like God not existing. And would I say that XYZ, the most horrible thing you can think of, is like wrong? Mm-hmm. I could, and I will concede to you, I can't argue from the position of God not existing properly. But if God didn't exist and something was deemed wrong by us, right? We just have no justification for it upon someone else to say, hey, you ought not do that. That's wrong. There would be no justification without there being a standard. Is what I would say.
I gotta get ready to go. I gotta hang out with
my
wife.
And I apologize for changing the topic.
It's all good.
I wasn't trying to like derail the show or anything like that. I just like to jump around. So I apologize for that.
No, I was just gonna go a quick time check in, see how everybody's doing on time, because
I got it.
No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
All right,
See,
Triboulet, get a word in, and then Joseph, last word of the show.
I was gonna say, I didn't know Joseph was that reformed. I figured he was reformed, but he is.
I don't even think I'm that though. I don't even think I'm that reformed.
Okay, well,
I'm still learning. I'm still learning, bro.
Okay,
I'm still learning.
All right. Okay, so as a former super reformed person myself, yes, all of that's super reformed stuff.
Well, we gotta talk. We gotta talk offline then, man.
Yeah, that's like some hardcore Cornelius Van Tillian, free suppositionism. That's what I'm saying. That's what that is. So
you gotta talk offline, man. Sometimes.
Yeah, definitely, man. So I like to get you back on and
Chris,
your boy. Yeah,
I got you with Chris for sure. No, he's down, bro. He's down.
Okay,
he's down
definitely.
He's down, man.
I'm looking forward to it, man. We always give the guest the last word.
Yeah,
oh man,
plug something you want to say. Now's your chance. You can take as much time as you'd like. When you're done, we're just gonna do our tidy up and announce what's going on next week. So have at it.
Yeah. No, man, I just appreciate you guys. One thing that I find really encouraging, even for myself, is that not just recently, but kind of been slowly getting into these type of spaces and talking with people. And I will afford that. Like, I grew up in a Christian home and stuff, and I think the most some of the most challenging questions have come from the other perspective, and I appreciate that. Just slowing down and trying to think through things, I think it's helpful. I think that's something that was definitely lacking in my upbringing. So I appreciate the pushback, man. I appreciate the challenging questions and just kind of getting you thinking. So yeah, I just appreciate you guys and big fan of the show. So hope we can just chop it up some more, even offline, and just stay in touch, build a rapport, even off the show. So I appreciate you guys a lot. So thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. Really appreciate you coming on.
Real quick, what do you feel about the doctrine of election, predestination? Do you accept that?
Oh, you mean like limited atonement?
Yeah, I mean the whole thing. Limited atonement on irresistible grace, perseverance of the saints.
That's a whole show, man. But
like the whole tulip.
Tulip plus 2.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I guess we add Piper. There were double predestination, right?
Oh man. Honestly, man, I'm not sure I even fully can grasp. I'm not sure I can fully grasp all of it, man. Like,
how about this? So you're saved, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is it? Did you come to the gospel on your own, or is it because God just pulled you over?
Is there anything you do to not be saved? That's a better question, in my opinion.
Oh, well, no. It's
I know what you mean. Yeah. So
did God just pull you over? Like, could you just not help it?
Oh, so like irresistible grace type stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
Tulip is all about that.
Yeah. So I don't understand it fully. So how I would phrase it is like this, right? The best I can, just really quick. So from my perspective, a human perspective, right? I know I have God's word, and God says that He has chosen me from the foundation of the world, before the foundation of the world. And then from my perspective, looking out is how will they know unless they hear a preacher? So I'm hearing the gospel, like Ephesians says, when you heard the word of truth and believed on the gospel of your salvation, you were sealed with the promised Holy Spirit. So I'm hearing the word of God being preached. I'm hearing the gospel that God created me. I owe Him a debt. He's loving and merciful, that He died for my sins, lived a perfect life I should have lived, died the death I shouldn't, died the death I should have died, rose from the dead, defeated death and sin, and He calls all men to repent and trust in Him for salvation. So from my perspective, heard the gospel, repented and trusted. Then upon like studying more, you start to see, okay, like it was God that was working in my life. I did nothing to be saved. He grants me the gift of eternal life.
Cool. Yeah.
He even grants faith. So yeah. So I'm still working through like, and I would say that like the depths of what like the implications of what some of the things that arise and questions and things like that. So, but yeah. So I wouldn't say that I saved myself. Like, okay, I saved myself.
You sound like you're on the tulip track. It just hasn't blossomed yet.
Yeah. I know what you mean. No, I know what you mean. Yeah. So. And yeah, and I've looked into like more of like trying to dive deeper into like what each theologian or scholar and different.
Your boys are all the way to Lafani.
No, yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
like
he was giving me those vibes.
I don't mean big head in a disrespectful way, but all the like big heads of the Christian space, right? Some of the more well-known people, just trying to learn more about the nuances in their position. I think there's people on both sides where, and I think the best way to describe it for me anyway, and just real quick, and then I don't want to keep you guys, but I appreciate you guys. I think one of the ways that it kind of helped me think through it was to find it. So I would say, like, for me, like, ultimately, like, both of kind of and I think we're talking about like the systems of like the provisionists or the Calvinists and the Arminianists, right? Like, both of those systems like fail in terms of trying to explain, like, ultimately explain what I would kind of consider the unexplainable about like human beings are incapable of fully grasping a concept of like, okay, yes, God is absolutely sovereign and knows all, and yes, human beings are called to make a genuine decision to place their faith in Christ into salvation. Like, these two facts, if you want to use that word, seem to be like contradictory, right? But in the mind of God, they make sense. From my Christian perspective and worldview, I don't have to fully understand how that comes together. And I enjoy talking about it though, but I don't have to fully grasp like, hey, it's this. I'm going to know it perfectly in the mechanism of how it happens. My point is more so the gospel, like, and even in terms of like Romans 1 talks about creation. I think it's clear that we're in it. I think it's clear that it's a creation. I think it's clear things like that. I think it's clear that like God exists, even before you get to the Jesus part. But yeah, like I believe the gospel. And
I like to have you back on
yeah.
to talk both of us about those points. About that, it's clear that the stuff is created. And I like to talk about that.
Yeah.
Because I definitely don't think it's clear that.
For sure.
It could be. It's just not clear.
I really like that you said it could be, man. You just made me happy, man.
Okay.
Happy, man. Thank you, brother. No,
okay.
I'm playing.
Well, man, we appreciate you coming on, man.
Man, I appreciate you guys too, man. And we on Facebook now, so just know I'll be locked in on y'all shows, man, in the comments for sure. So,
all right, man.
Thank y'all, man. Love.
Yeah, well, go visit his channel. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and watching.
Peace.
Shout out to, we had one commenter from Twitch, and they were obviously a Howard Stern fan. And if you don't know who that is, I am the weirdo that would know who that is. So you're welcome for me catching that. And it was Baba Booey John Cena from Twitch. So just wanted to shout out to you for stopping by, saying hello. If you enjoyed it, swing back by, give us a like, a subscription. Doesn't cost you anything. You're more than welcome to come on the show if you'd like. You can email us at nowthat'sdebatableStream@gmail.com. We'd love to have you on. Next week, we do have a guest lined up already. It's going to be back on Tuesdays. Next week. This week was a little off just because of holidays and scheduling and whatnot, but next week we have a guest who actually commented as part of last week and the chats, and Wesley is going to be coming on, and he was commenting a little bit in one of our last videos. He's going to come on. We're going to be talking about why should we trust biblical prophecy. Real quick shout out to Relic Media. Anything you want to say before we take off?
Nope, I'm good.
All right, let's end it up.